But what I want to do is tell you about who we are, what we aim to do, and what we see happening in the future. Connecting the dots. That's what I want to talk about. And I want to explain, obviously, what that means, because really that's at the heart of what Pure Hope does. We connect dots. We connect concepts. You know, someone has said that creativity is the power to connect the seemingly unconnected. And that's what we're about. That's what the body has to be about. That's what the church has to be about. We are weak. We do not see clearly. We are vulnerable when concepts that ought to be connected are disconnected. And we're going to talk more about that. We're going to see that through Shelley's testimony. We're going to see that tonight. But we're about connecting ideas. And the first thing we want to do is connect people. And we want to connect them with a hope. We want to connect them with a vision for purity that leads to hope. And that is embodied in our vision statement, which is a world free of sexual exploitation and brokenness. And the exciting thing about that, as bold as that is that it's going to happen because we serve a Redeemer who is going to redeem. That will happen. It's a promise. It'll happen when his feet touch the Mount of Olives and he restores all. But until then, we work at Pure Hope, and we're called to work to that end by providing Christian solutions in a sexualized culture, because that's what we're living in, is a sexualized culture. Anybody in this room who doesn't know that for whatever reason will come face to face with that tonight through testimony and through Shelley's story. We live in a pornified society. We live in one that is steeped in vice rather than virtue. And that's what we're about, is calling people, like the singer sang, to incline our hearts to virtue. But this is what we're all about, providing solutions. And I don't want to talk so much tonight about statistics and about negative realities. I don't want to talk about the fact that 12 to 15% of the internet is pornographic. I don't really want to talk about the fact that perhaps 200,000 youths in the U.S. are trafficked into pornography and prostitution every year. I don't want to talk about the fact necessarily that perhaps 50% of men in the pews each weekend are struggling with porn. I don't want to talk about how marriages are falling apart. I don't want to talk about how we're being ravaged and our young people are being thrown to the lions. I want to talk about the hope we have. I want to talk about the solutions and what we're called to do. And it's really embodied in this concept. And no, it's not a mobile app that I'm launching today, but look for it in 2012 because it's in the works. But this is revolutionary. And the reason I can say that is because it has revolutionized my life. This is what Pure Hope is all about. It's about a lifestyle. It's about a pursuit of purity that is embodied in a life of prayer, understanding, resolve, and engagement. And the reason that's so important is because we're putting a framework around this concept of purity. Purity means so many things to so many people. For some people, it's just something that's unattainable. And of course, we're missing the point of the gospel if that's the case. What we want to do is put a framework around something that's not just about rings, it's not just about pledges, it's about the calling of every individual who is serving Jesus Christ to pursue. And this is how we get there. A life of prayer, understanding, resolve, and engagement. Prayer is about cultivating intimacy with God. This is where it all starts. Pray without ceasing. If we're not connecting with the Lord our God, we don't have a chance. We're called to pray and lay our hearts before him. And when we do that, that leads us to understanding, which is acquiring knowledge to discern. And that's what we're going to acquire tonight. Every time Pure Hope gets up and talks, every time we produce a resource, every time we touch people, we're giving understanding. That's our goal, to equip people. And you're going to get understanding about the realities through the testimonies tonight, through Shelley's story, that will help you acquire knowledge to discern what this is really about, what commercial sex is really about, what porn is really about. But Paul wrote in Ephesians, do not be ignorant, but understand the will of God. And that's when we can grow. That's when we can become equipped to be the light shining on a hill, a city on a hill, even in the midst of the darkness right now. That leads us to resolve, a commitment, a life of repentance, and a perseverance that brings us through, because we will face troubles, especially in an environment where we are tempted and we are attacked by an adversary every single day. But the way this whole thing comes together is through love, loving one another in word and deed, engaging. And this is the piece that we see so many people failing in. Not because they want to be failing, but because they don't know how to do this. The parents don't know how to talk to their kids. Spouses don't know how to talk after years. People don't know how to open up and go and say, I'm going to live a life of action and openness and authenticity and transparency. But that's what it's all about. That's how you close the loop. And that's how you create this loop that builds on itself, that creates momentum in our lives, that moves us towards purity and sanctification, rather than one that goes in the opposite direction and affects not only us, but so many other people. But at the heart of this, we make certain, we proclaim, is the cross of Jesus Christ. It's about his work within us. It's about a transformed life. It's about renewed hearts and minds. That is what this is all about, and that's how we pursue purity. Because as John said, those who hope in him purify themselves as he is pure. Purity is a calling of every single one of us. And for me, just a personal note, why I'm standing in front of you today is because those dots were connected for me 3 years ago when I got calls and went to breakfast with my brother Rick, and he seemed to have this hook that he wrapped around my waist and was pulling me out of a life of comfort and ease and into this. But what happened was the Lord showed me the connections. Because I asked him, I said, Lord, why would I come to a ministry like this? Why, sex? Wow, great, but kind of peripheral, right? I mean, that's not important. It's a side eddy over here. And the Lord spoke to me and said, no, this is central. This is central to who you are. In 1 Thessalonians, Paul says, this is the very will of God for you, that you pursue sanctification, that you pursue purity and abstain from sexual immorality. This is the very will of God. This is where the gospel is rooted, a life of redemption. And when I came to understand that, everything started to come together. I understood why I was so drawn to this injustice of sex trafficking, 5 years before I ever went to law school. I understood how that was connected to the stories you'll hear tonight. I understood how these things came together. And that's what we're doing at Pure Hope. We're connecting these ideas in 3 main ways as we equip people for purity. We equip people for purity, and we equip them to oppose sexual exploitation in these 3 ways. The first one is parenting, and this has always been our focus historically, because parents are the most influential people in their kids' lives. They may not feel like it, but they are, and our kids need us. And that's what we're doing in our peer parenting work. We are connecting parents with information, with tools, with strategies, with knowledge to be able to engage, to be able to equip their kids to succeed, to love them, to create a culture of authenticity and openness in their homes. More than that, we are connecting them with the idea that this is not just about telling your kids what to do. It's not just about giving them something to do, telling them that thou shalt not and repeating these things. Rather, it's about modeling. You can't give away what you don't have, is something we say often. And C.S. Lewis put it this way, none can give another what he does not possess himself. If we're not walking in purity and pursuing purity as parents, our kids will see that. And that will be the strongest message that they'll take away. We're connecting people. Connecting people. When we do parenting seminars and conferences across the country, one of the main things that happens is people walk out of that room saying, the biggest thing that I was touched by tonight was there are other people who are struggling just like me. Because we break down the isolation when we come together and we can share and we can open up. Let me step back. Pure justice is our second one. And I really want to set the stage for what Shelley is going to say to you tonight. Our Pure Justice program is focused on, number 1, connecting the injustices of porn and trafficking. This is something that we're blowing wide open through our resources and through partnerships across the country. Connecting the commercial sex industry, which is seamless fabric and affects our lives in ways we don't even think about, ways we don't even really realize. The commercialization of sex, the very definition of the perversion of God's gift of sex to a man and a woman, that he even created us male and female, and then created this union. It is the injustice. It is the perversion of that. The second thing we want to do is connect the virtues of purity and justice. For me, this was an eye-opener, coming out of law practice and thinking I was doing justice and realizing my own heart condition was the starting point for a just life. That's where it starts, a pursuit of purity, especially as we pursue justice for victims of sexual exploitation across the globe. And then we're connecting people through events that we'll talk about in a second, and connecting with ministries like Shelley's, and getting this word out and equipping people with new knowledge. And peer recovery, getting people connected with tools who are already drowning, who are already in a place where they're in over their heads, and they're living a life that is defined by bondage to sexual addiction. And all these things come together. Here's the beauty of it. This lifestyle of prayer, understanding, resolve, and engagement forms the engine of all of this. We had a testimony, came out of our partnership with Covenant Eyes a couple years ago, and we did a Justice Week. And one of the responses to one of our blog posts said this, thanks for the focus on justice this week. What a great idea. My eyes were opened to other dimensions of pornography and sexual sin. Years of sexual addiction and then 3 years of recovery largely revolved around me and my world. Now I'm starting to have a burden for others, a burden that moves me to action. The pursuit of a just life drives us towards love, drives us towards healing, drives us towards a redemption that demonstrates the power of the gospel to a world that is crying out for it. What we want to do at Pure Hope is get these tools in people's hands. Again, this lifestyle forms the center of everything we do and is at the core of what we're all about. Getting people equipped through speaking ministry, through conferences and seminars, which we'll talk about in a second, through print, through audio, through video. We have been doing this for 30 years since our founding in 1983. Well, the web wasn't around then, so you can take the iPad off of that, I guess. But we're getting there now. This is what we're about, getting people connected, and people are desperate for it. People are desperate for this. And that's why we go to work every day. And that's why we feel strengthened every day, because we see the fruit. We see the fruit of what's going on. And we're doing this across the country. From the very beginning, when many of you in this room even remember when Jerry Kirk stood up at the pulpit at College Hill Presbyterian Church and said he was going to battle pornography. We've been doing this for 30 years, and we're going to continue to do it into the future. And we're going to continue to touch lives through events, through speaking ministry, through lectures, through conferences across the country, touching lives, getting resources that go global now here in the mobile age. The Conversion Summit we hosted and held in April in Baltimore, and I want to stand here and thank Jerry, because this was really his brainchild, and Rick for their labor. This was a unique thing. This was a unique event. It brought together over 200 leaders from across the country. We had over 20 speakers who were all subject matter experts on everything from law, policy, people from academia, neuroscientists, activists. We were connecting dots about the effects of sexual degradation, the commercial sex industry, and specifically the role of pornography in driving demand for sex trafficking in the mobile age, where technology is creating a distribution channel that we've never seen before in terms of the vile nature of the content that's coming into our lives and streaming over us in our image-driven society. An amazing event, and the fruit continues to come out of that. We have seen denominational leaders make commitments out of that to implement the action steps that we worked on over 2 days to create, again, with leaders from across the country, the Catholic diocese across the nation, Chief Technology Officer of the Greek Orthodox Church, creating resources for the entire nation within that community. The Nazarene Church creating websites and distributing tens of thousands of resources to help their parents deal with the effects of sexualized technology in their kids' lives. This fruit continues to be borne out, and opportunities for pureHOPE to minister have been opened up. Rick just last week was speaking to 120 Catholic priests in the D.C. area, training them, and we were able to speak to youth in Atlanta, to over 1,400 youth at a youth conference. These doors are opening, and it's because the time is now. The time is now. This is the battle that we face, and it starts right here. It starts right in our own hearts. The thing that we're really excited about is our internship program, and we're going to hear from one of our interns tonight. In our Pure Justice work, one of the things that we're doing is equipping the emerging generation to be advocates for purity and justice in their communities and across the country. And we've now had 11 interns come across our campus, come across and through our program, now spread across the country on campuses and in the workplace. We'll hear from Mary Ann in a second about understanding the pornification of society, how that drives the trafficking of women and children into sexual exploitation, and how their pursuit of purity is at the root of turning of the tide in their generation. We want this to be a hub. We are all about aggregating. pureHOPE's not about doing everything by ourselves. We bring together ministries. We bring together experts. We bring together the best resources and disseminate them. We have always done that from the very beginning, and we will continue to do that. And we're very excited about what kind of power and momentum that can create as we get better at doing it. Connect, partner, and grow. That's our philosophy. We want to connect with individuals, but specifically churches and Christian schools. We want to connect with them across the country. We want to develop partnerships, go deeper, penetrate, help them serve their people in a way that's effective, and then grow. Continue a relationship where we're getting them resources going forward. I want to end here before I show you a short video, kind of captures some of the highlights of the year. And I want to end these hopefully brief remarks with a challenge and with an opportunity. I want to challenge everybody in this room to commit to pursuing a life of prayer, understanding, resolve, and engagement. This is the mandate that we see in Scripture, and it's a calling on each one of our lives. And this is where it's going to begin. Individuals and families making a decision to act courageously and pursue this wholeheartedly, pursuing the Lord our God. This is something for every single one of us. I heard a pastor recently say, with respect to the sexualization of society and the pursuit of purity, here's the test, whether this is for you. Fingers up in the air, put them on your wrist. If you feel something, this is for you. This ministry has solutions for you. And we're excited about how we're going to grow this year.